Want to know what your dog is thinking?
Have a challenging dog behavior you need help with?
The Dish on Dogs is your source for all your canine questions.
Improve your relationship with your dog and deepen your understanding of your furry friend. Right here on the Dish on Dogs. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Dish on Dogs, the show that we talk about dogs in all forms and fashions. Sometimes we talk about the dog business, dog food, dog medical care. It's always, obviously, the theme of the show is dogs. I'm your host, Mike Gould, mayor of Houndstown, USA, home to the happiest dogs on earth. So today we have a special guest, and I always like to talk about dogs. That's my thing in life. Some people talk about sports, some people talk about art, cars, whatever it is. This is my thing. And sometimes I get distracted by the business of dogs, and I don't get a chance to talk about the dogs themselves. So it's always very fun for me to do that. Joining me today is Cooper Flynn.
Hey, Mike.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't even know what live in this bubble. I don't know what... So welcome to the show, Cooper. Cooper is, by the way, Houndstown's marketing manager, and he does this great job. He's got this phenomenal talent, marketing, videography, all of these things. It's great. But the reason he's joining me today is not to talk about that, but to talk about the relatively new addition to your home.
Yes.
What's this about right here?
So I figured my girlfriend and I had recently adopted a puppy. We already have a 6-year-old dog, but we decided, now, let's get a puppy. She decided, let's get a puppy, and I agreed.
Right.
By willingness and choice, obviously.
You have to say that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
That's right.
That's just,
just by chance she watches.
For the record.
For the record.
Yeah.
I understand.
And then we ended up adopting a mixed dog from a place in Pennsylvania a little while back. And, it's everything's going smoothly. Great dog. Everything's going awesome with it. But, I was thinking, hey, I got a couple questions about just dog behavior, puppy training, all that kind of stuff, bringing that new addition into the house, socializing. And I figured, why not come to the source and ask you about a couple questions about what to do in those situations.
So great. That's a good description of pet ownership or pet adoption, rescue, whatever you're talking about. So it's always an emotional decision, and it should be taken seriously. So it is something that I'm assuming you went back and forth on and considered your life, and whether because we know that taking a new dog into our home is like taking a child into your home. There's expenses, responsibilities, and I know for sure that you've taken all those into consideration. And then we talk about, the age of the dog. I think you said 8 months old?
Yeah, he's 8 months now. Right. We got him when he was about 3.
3. So the other word you use, and I'm kind of listening to the words you choose, he's a mixed dog, mixed breed dog, which honestly, all dogs are mixed breeds. If you think about it, every dog is a mutation of a wolf. So, and I don't key in on that so much, but dogs are bred. They do have genetic instincts to do certain things. But the most important word you said is socialization, socializing. So in real estate, we talk about location, location, location. With dogs, particularly young dogs, is socialization, socialization, socialization. And the more exposure they have, and socialization doesn't mean you got to bring them to a wedding or bring them to a mall. Socialization really just means to allow a dog to experience the human world, which we've kind of exclude by virtue of adopting a dog or getting a dog. We've removed them from their natural pack of siblings. And now we have to kind of introduce them singularly because they don't have other dog pack members. In your case, you do have another dog, which is cool. So are you having an 8-month-old dog? To me, he's moving into adolescence. He's no longer a puppy. In my view, and this is just very general ideas, thoughts I have. I think of a puppy as 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months old. Then I start to think of a teenager about being a year old, about a year. That's where a lot of the problems we see. I can almost, if somebody calls me with a behavioral problem, I can almost know their age by the problem that they're having. So I look at dogs, teenagers, a year old, 12 months old. So you kind of reap what you sow. So give me
Yeah.
an example of what your life is like with your new dog.
It's good. I mean, he's very relaxed, and having an older dog that she's a bigger breed, so she's actually a Siberian Indian dog. And now I know we don't really focus too much on the breeds, but she's a big dog,
big ass dog.
yeah, and she's older for that age, and she's very laid back, so he's kind of feeding off of that energy. And that was kind of one of the questions I was wondering: is he seeing her more as a mother figure or an alpha figure, or is there no real difference in the dog world, if that makes sense?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm not going to say a mother figure, but I'm certainly going to say a leadership figure. So we, as humans, social pack animals, dogs are social pack animals. So it's almost good that you have the other dog if that dog has the proper boundaries, then
definitely.
You're right. So if it doesn't, so dogs are communicating. The older dog, obviously, how old was it? You said
She's 6.
6 years old. So she's a mature, for sure, an adult dog, and actually moving along, into older age. At 6 years old, because dogs have a much quicker life span and expectancy. So you have this other dog, and by all accounts, you're not describing any real big issues with the dog. So
No.
So you're kind of lucky, and I think that we talk about leadership, consistency, and boundaries. So if the other dog has some, sense of boundaries where it fits in your human pack, then the other dog is going to acclimate the same way. Knowing, and again, you described it right. So I don't key in on breeds, although breeds are important. There are genetic predispositions. If you breed a herding dog, it's going to have herding instincts. If you breed a fighting dog, it's going to have fighting instincts, guarding instincts, territorial instincts. So we do take that into consideration, but the most important thing to me is the age and the size of the dog. So a 10-pound dog is different than a 110-pound dog. So what's your, I guess the big things people, is the new dog housebroken?
Yes, he is. He was actually very quick to pick up on that. And I think some of that came through the other dog, that he realized there were a couple moments, but he was quick to tell us when he needed to go to the door, at least.
Right.
The same method that the other dog already does to tell us. So we bought the pee pads and all that kind of stuff, but he was pretty quick. The only thing was, it's a puppy. So if you don't get up immediately when he needs to go, it was, oh, he's going to pee on the floor. And sure enough, he did. And then you get into that transitional phase of, okay, is every time he comes to the door an emergency, like getting out of that? So
Right. Well, that's a funny thing, and that's a great question. I go to a lot of my clients' house, and they feel as though it's this great thing they've done. They taught the dog to ring a bell, like they have a bell hanging from the door.
we made that mistake.
So they think this is a great feat of, dog behavior, that the dog goes and rings the bell. We're presuming it means it has to relieve itself. But if now you become the butler, so now every time literally the dog rings the bell, you're jumping out of bed. And now what does the dog do? It's ringing the bell all day long because it wants to go out and smell a new scent that's outside. So it's kind of funny, but it sounds to me, just by your description, you have no overt problems. And I think one mistake is, again, like children, if your one dog is a well-balanced dog, the older dog, then the new dog is going to pick up those traits to some degree. But if your other dog isn't, so it's like having a wild teenager and think that that's going to be a good role model for a new member of your family, a human member of your family. It's not. If it's a good role model, it's a good role model.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're lucky enough to have that. And the housebreaking. I'm not a big fan of the wee-wee pads just in general, because you're really then teaching the dog that it's okay to relieve themselves inside the house. And usually you have to transition the wee-wee pads then outside, or else to a dog, a wee-wee pad is just a towel on the ground. So it's sometimes slightly confusing to the dog. So it's just easier to eliminate that step and just get the dogs to go outside. And it is a learning experience, of course, for them, because they don't care. They don't, your living room, as long as they're not living close to it, and new dogs will usually relieve themselves as far away from where they sleep as possible. But they don't have the same concerns about peeing on your carpet as you would, or
Yeah, I usually try to think twice before peeing on my own carpet.
Right. Well, I've tried, I've considered it, but sometimes I just can't help it. But yeah, so it sounds good. So social experiences, bringing the dog around with other dogs. We sometimes have a tendency, and we don't understand how quickly dogs are maturing. So the maturation rate, they're maturing so quickly. So we kind of forget every day, every week, every month in a dog's life is critical to their socialization. So sometimes we have to do it for reasons, vets will tell you don't allow the dog out till it has all its immunizations and stuff. But that week or month is critical to a dog's development. So the more you can get your dog out on grass, concrete, understand, because dogs don't understand really anything human. They understand what's in the natural world. What's natural to a dog is stone, dirt, trees, vegetation, mirrors, floor surfaces, carpeting. These are all foreign substances to a dog. And they have to understand they don't know what buses are. They don't know what bicycles are. They don't know what skateboards are. So the more you can just, as I say in a lot of these episodes, is take a step back and not be so projecting. I want to teach the dog to high five. I want to teach the dog to roll over. I want him to be this and that and fill all of these kind of social needs we have as a human. Just allow, and again, our motto here at Houndstown is just let dogs be dogs. Just come in here, into our doors, leave the toxic, and again, just like a child. If you have a 2 or 3 year old child, don't try to insist they figure out a Rubik's Cube when they're 2 or 3 years old. They just give them a puddle of water and a ball, and they'll have all the greatest time in the world. It's okay if they get wet. It's okay if they get dirty. So I think that is the biggest bit of advice I give to new pet owners, is just to accept the dog as part of your family, but understand always it's a dog.
Yeah, exactly. It's never like, it's easy to see it as part of the family, but at the same time, you're like, oh, it's, my baby or whatever. Right. And you have to step back. Like, we had a incident like a little bit while ago. He hurt his paw. He was fine. But I'm like trying to battle in my head. I'm like, this is like the baby. I work from home when I'm not here. So I'm like, I'm home with him every day, all this kind of stuff. But I had to get my rationality into it because I could tell I was freaking him out. Right. He was like, I just hurt my paw. I'm good. And he, I'm like, oh, is he okay? Did he get bit by like a snake or something? Because we now thankfully have a fenced in backyard. So going back to that bell real quick, they came from a townhouse where they used the bell just mostly when they needed to go outside, but they went out on a leash. It wasn't very fun. Now that we have a backyard, we tried doing the bells. I think they lasted 2 weeks before we're cutting the bells off. My girlfriend snapped. She's like, give me the scissors. We're doing it.
Yeah. No, but that's a big difference to have an outside place where you don't have to harness, tether the dog to you if it's avoidable. Mm-hmm. So those are all kind of great things. And so dogs have a different pain threshold. So the only way, and we've talked about this on many episodes, is the only way we can understand dogs is from our human brain and our human lens. So, and there is a very fine balance. And as I said, I'm always accused of being, kind of detached. But I think it's from dogs emotionally, which I'm really not. I had a customer ask me years ago, like, Mike, do you really love dogs at all? Based on, my conversations, it would be easy to say. And she said that to me, and I laughed because I paused for a minute. She goes, Mike, I got to ask you this. Do you love dogs? And I paused for a minute. I says, I have a relationship with a dog that transcends love. Because if you think of human love, it's sometimes very ambiguous. You could love somebody. At some point, I think we've all loved somebody, whether it's a childhood friend and then we hated them for something, or, so we've had this ambiguous emotion we call love. My relationship with dogs, I really believe this transcends that because I connect to dogs on a very animal level, literally speaking. I'll get on the ground and I do things with dogs that tap into their natural predatory drives and stuff. And I understand that I am anthropomorphic. I still ask my dog how it's doing in the morning. I wake up and I say good morning to the dog. But we have to realize that dog is impossible for the dog to respond to or even understand what a good morning is. It's impossible for that brain to understand that. So I think we're all, myself included, always balancing this out. But particularly working at home now, that's even worse because there's no time to really detach from the dog. So we're always looking, talking, touching. The dog is in our universe. So if he starts limping, right away, people are racing the dog to the hospital, and dogs have a different pain threshold. Just think about it. Just think of how resilient dogs are in the wild. And there's not much difference between your dog now than dogs were 50,000 years ago. They're fundamentally the same. Emotionally, intellectually, they're the same. So we have these animals living in our homes, which we love, and they give us all of this. They meet a lot of our emotional needs, but when it gets out of balance, as Jackie would say, that's when you have problems. But it sounds like you got things in pretty good order.
It is good. I mean, there's a couple things, like you said, you touched on it briefly, that always being at home, that separation anxiety now is much worse because of that. You know, we did the crate training in the beginning, and as I will take full responsibility, partially, of the, the dog, he kind of sleeps on the floor or on the bed now with us, along with the other dog. So he's kind of weaned off the crate. He's not a fan of the crate. And that, with the separation anxiety of he's used to somebody always being home. Like some days, I'll go a couple days without leaving the house. So he's never had to be in his crate during those times. So I was wondering, just like any tips or tricks with that kind of separation anxiety.
No, absolutely. And I get the part about the crate. So the crate to humans are a cage, and you said he doesn't really like it. My guess is the human doesn't really like it. And I get the concept. I understand our dogs are in our beds. They're on our couches, our personal dogs. The question is, and we talked about an episode before, what is the dog's expectation of a bed or a couch? Is it there? Do they have a sense of entitlement that it's not Cooper's couch anymore, it's his couch? And if it's not a problem, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
But you just have to monitor an 8-month-old dog. In 3 months, he's going to be completely different psychologically and probably physically to some degree. So now, has he taken the couch or the bed as his personal place, and now does he growl at you or a child when it comes? You're not going to know that. He might have the perfect temperament, and many dogs do. So unfortunately for me, I'm always thinking about the dogs where problems begin. We talked about an episode where dogs were peeing on the person's bed or pillow. It's a common practice, but that's telling you the dog thinks this is his bed, not yours. He's marking over your scent, and he's saying, I'm the dominant person in this bed, which may be very benign. But in 6 months down the road, which is not a long time for our life expectancy, it's a different dog. And you might hear a little guttural, and if it's not you, it may be another member of the family or a child especially.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's not like it's not a bad thing. You don't have to get stressed out. Just monitor it. And you should be able to clap your fingers or snap your fingers, and he should defer to that and get off the couch.
Yeah, and he's already, get down. I haven't seen any things of territory on it. He's allowed up on the bed at certain times.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads me to a follow-up. He's got a chair that he's like kind of claimed as a puppy, and he's a puppy, he's tiny. It's like, oh, that's cute. That's his spot. And over time, we kind of just let him have that chair. But that's kind of his only piece of furniture that he's really goes on.
All right.
And so with the couch, he's got to be welcomed up onto the couch. Can dogs tell the difference between the couch and his chair?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay.
Finish the question.
Go ahead. That was the end of that question.
Right.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. So, it's funny that dogs very easily can determine that, and you can encourage that behavior on that couch by giving him a treat. You can snap your fingers, point to the couch, and if you just give him a treat every time he jumps on that couch, and conversely not, the problem comes in when we're confusing dogs. Dogs are easy, but you might allow the dog on the couch while you're watching Netflix, but you don't want the dog on the couch when you have company over. So now you're always adjusting your sense of space.
Yeah.
And now the dog has to figure this out. So in my world, in my view, his chair could be his chair, and that's where he belongs. So when ambiguity comes in, so that when we talk about leadership boundaries and consistency, that's just going to make your life easier. That's all. And it's, again, I don't like to be viewed as the guy that has to, like people have to lose sleep over this and say, oh my God, I let the dog on the couch. No, of course not. And the dog will tell you his behavior. But I can tell you, the more you remove ambiguity and be more consistent, the better it is. But absolutely, you claim a certain side of the bed, I'm assuming. When you sit down, when you go to your dinner table, you probably sit in the same place all the time. I doubt you circulate around to different places. If you're sitting in your living room, I can pretty much know when I go to people's houses, I look for the remote control, I look for magazines, and I can pretty much know where people are accustomed to. And the same, as I said, if you go to a hotel, you and your wife, your girlfriend, fiance go to a hotel, and you're naturally comfortable sleeping just on one side of a bed than the other. People say, that's my side. So we've already claimed that. So dogs do this all the time, and you just have to be the leader in that situation. But leadership comes by, and you have a natural demeanor, and I'm a natural calm demeanor. And I'm going to suggest that just that in and of itself is why you're really not having very complicated problems with it. Again, unless there's another side of your personality that I don't understand, that you go home and scream and yell. You seem very, but that's important. No drama. Dogs don't like drama. They don't like frenetic energy. So the more balanced you are, the dog will acclimate to that kind of energy level.
Exactly. That's awesome. I know we got to wrap up soon, but I got just a couple more of the socialization. Him socializing. We've had friends over that have brought their dogs, no territory issues or anything. He gets along great with the dogs. Any, dog that'll play with him, he knows he's pretty easy to be kind of put in his place. He knows, this is the alpha. It's not a problem. But most of the time he's just with the other dog, Willow. And does that consist of socialization of the dog, or is socialization in terms more outside of his home pack? Does that make sense?
No, it does make sense. But again, I'll go back to a child. So where is a child, a 2 or 3 or 4-year-old going to be? They're going to be different. You're different at home than you are in a social situation. That's just as simple as it gets. And there's certain things, if I came to your house and I start going through your drawers or your something, that's not what. So I have to already have certain boundaries established. So when you come to a houndstown or a dog parks, I don't like, but I can speak of houndstown because we have a very specific thing. We remove all that. So for a dog, this is a neutral dog place. It's neutral. There's no humans yelling at them. There's no couches that they've possessed normally, and now a new dog. So socialization in the home with different animals, I kind of cringe. It's because I don't know what's going to happen. So again, we'll watch how your dog matures. So he's 8 months old. It's not a good indication.
Exactly.
So it's like my kids were good when they were 10. And when they turned 16, they needed an exorcism. So if I said with my 10-year-old daughter, she was wonderful. She had like this little halo on at 10 years old and a little communion outfit. But when she turned 16 or 17, she was a nightmare. And then she's reset herself, which is good. But my point of the matter is you kind of have to look at that, but your dog is moving along, maturing so quickly that it's hard for us to understand that. So a day, a week in a dog's life. But to answer your question, I'm just super careful about that because he's not, and even your 6-year-old dog. So your 6-year-old dogs whose behavior is, let's say, perfect right now, for lack of a better word, is just chilled and calm and so forth. If he starts developing arthritis and other physical ailments when he gets to be 10, or particularly if he's a large dog, he's going to be prone to arthritis, maybe hip dysplasia. So now he has physical issues that you're not aware of because you're not taking x-rays of his hip and so forth. So his behavior is going to change. I think you just have to chill out like you are. You're a chill dude. And no drama, no screaming, yelling. Don't overanalyze, psychoanalyze. I live in that world. People are out buying the organic food and free roaming chickens for the dogs and stuff. But dogs are much simpler than that. They haven't changed in really 50,000 years. Humans have. Our needs have changed. Our emotions have changed. Dogs are still back there.
So the key to that socialization, that's just consistency. So consistency, like taking your dog to a houndstown on a routine basis, it helps get your dog in the routine of more socialization opportunities. So potentially maybe in those 6 months, if the dog's consistently going, it could be a little bit more used to being with other dogs or different
absolutely.
dogs?
Yeah, absolutely. But again, it's a little bit more to it because we live in a crazy world.
Exactly.
So we have leashes and collars. So it's really acclimating the dog to a car ride. You're really not driving him to the Hamptons or into New York City. You're acclimating him to the movement of a car, which is insane for a dog. Think about it. Think about what a car is. It's traveling at warp speed, and if the life is passing them by. So if they start barking at the red light to the car next to them, you need to control that, or else they think they're literally creating traffic. Right? If they bark at the car next to them at the red light, the light turns green, the car pulls away. Now the dog thinks it can scare every car away. So it's very important to take your human brain off and think of the simplicity of actually what is happening and so socialization does require comfortability in a car ride, just like children. Sometimes young kids are going to get car sick, but not if you drive from here to California with a child, they're going to overcome the car sickness, as is a dog.
Yeah.
So socialization is a funny thing. It's not by where you're going, it's how you're going. Does that make sense a little bit?
Yeah, it definitely does. I love that mindset of things.
All right.
Well, thank you for taking the time
This
to answer
was
some of these
super
questions.
cool.
This is awesome.
Cooper Flynn. He's a cool dude, laid back and relaxed. Thanks for watching this episode. Join us again next week for another episode on the Dish on Dogs.
Thanks for watching another exciting episode of the Dish on Dogs podcast. You can also watch us on YouTube on the Dish on Dogs podcast. If you're a listener, you can catch us on iTunes, Spotify, and all your other podcast platforms. For more information, click the link in the description. We'll see everybody next time.